Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we're here again with another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today we have Jeanette Leardi. She is an author. Her book is titled Aging Sideways, Changing Perspectives on Getting Older. Jeanette's a social gerontologist, a community educator, writer, editor, and public speaker who has dedicated her encore career to empowering older adults and helping us all rethink aging. Her personal journey as a caregiver to both of her parents inspired her to advocate for the wisdom of elders, encouraging others to see them as mentors and catalysts for change. Jeanette's work has been featured in outlets like Next Magazine, Third Act Magazine, and she's led classes and presentations on everything from brain fitness and memoir writing to ageism and caregiver support. She brings a wealth of publishing experience from roles at Newsweek, Life, People, Condé Nast Traveler, Sesame Street, and the Charlotte Observer. Jeanette holds a master's degree from Rutgers and a graduate certificate in gerontology from UNC Charlotte. And please join me in welcoming Jeanette.
Hi, Donna. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you do. It's so incredibly needed. Um, we need to be appreciated as we get older,
Yeah,
for
we do.
sure,
Yeah,
for
we do.
sure. And tell me, like, how you got started in this. How did this transition from caring to your parents to advocating for an entire generation?
Well, I'd like to say it started off happily, but it didn't. It started off unhappily because when I was a caregiver to both my parents, we had a really hard time getting them what I would call person-centered care. Gerontologists, we call it person-centered care. And it's the kind of care that addresses them as whole human beings, not as a compendium of symptoms, not as a collection of organs, but as human beings with a past, with preferences, with needs, with skills. And it was really hard to get them that kind of care. A lot of times we ran up with against what is institutional care. In other words, it's
Mm.
care that's convenient for a system, but not convenient for the person as a person. And so it was so challenging, and often it was debilitating, and often it was it was just sad or hard or frustrating. So when they both passed away, and this happened to me for about 10 years when I was in my 40s into my 50s. And after they both passed away, I went back to graduate school. I had a master's in English from Rutgers when I was in my late 20s. But by this time now I was in my 50s, and I went
Mhm.
back to school to study gerontology because I was just convinced that we get aging wrong and we've got to get aging right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find out what's aging really about and how can I help make it right. So that's what I did. So at age 57, I got that grad certificate, and
Well,
I've been writing, blogging about aging issues ever since, and
and
teaching.
have you seen any changes since then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really encouraged at the fact that we now have an what I would consider an anti-ageism movement now. A couple of years ago, you know, the word ageism wasn't really widespread as it is in our social media today. Now, if you say the word ageism, most people sort of understand what you mean, which is prejudice against anyone purely because of their chronological age,
Hmm.
which means people of any age can be susceptible to ageism. Young people can be considered, well, you're too young, you know, we can't take you seriously, you're not experienced enough. That's the kind of ageism they usually experience. But we older adults experience ageism is as you know, we live in a culture that considers aging nothing but deterioration and decline. So of
Hmm.
course, nobody wants to get old. We're afraid to
Yeah.
get old. We dread getting old, and we're treated as if you know, we're kind of we become invisible. We become useless. We become people assume we're clueless. We're reluctant to change, which is totally opposite. I mean, I tell people when I give presentations, I ask older adults, what was a telephone like when you were a kid? You know, if you grew up with the rotary phone stuck on the wall with the spiral cord that kept getting tangled up and you
Hmm.
couldn't walk around your house, and now you have a smartphone, you've changed. Well, we've changed with all iterations of cars and washing machines and you name it.
Everything. We
But
don't,
we
yeah, we don't live in the same world. I like
no,
to tell people I went from carbon paper to AI.
you're right. carbon paper. Yeah, you ask somebody younger today, what do you know what carbon paper? Do you know what a mimeograph machine is? You know,
I could smell it when you say the word.
exactly. So, but then also the big changes we go through as older adults is our bodies do, in certain ways, parts of our bodies do start to deteriorate, but our minds get better in other ways. And that's what I love to talk about is how we gain some skills that we couldn't possibly have when we were in our 30s. So
Yeah.
there's a balance out there. We lose some things, but we gain other things. And aging is nothing to fear. It's nothing to dread. If we dread it, it's because society makes us dread it, because a society doesn't support us in getting old. If society supported us in getting old, I think we'd have a lot easier time coping with it, and we wouldn't fear it so much.
No, where I mean, when I started this whole thing, it was an accidental, happy accident.
Mm,
But I just got pissed off at Mika Brzezinski and the Forbes, 30 over 50 conference, 50 over 50, and I was like, it's the same people. The same people. They charge $10,000 to sit in a seat
mm,
to go to one of those events. And if
mm.
you want to be on that 50 over 50 list, and if you're a founder or a small business owner, you've got to have a minimum of $10 million in revenue.
Ooh.
Well, that wipes out everyone I know.
Yeah, you think? Yeah, exactly. I
And what I realized as I started to do the research around this is they're throwing the word reinvention at us like it's a
mm,
good thing, and it's not a good thing
mm,
because
mm,
it's telling us whatever we did to this point doesn't matter anymore. There's
that's
no, there's
interesting.
there's no relevance to it. So if you want to be relevant, you're going to need to start over and forget everything you ever did.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah.
And that's not a good feeling, to get
No.
to get thrown at you from every angle when you're in your 50s or 60s or 40s or whenever it comes.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
what it really is, it's remembering. It's
Hmm.
remembering all those things that you did. And so
Hmm.
like the work that you're doing around our brains is so important because this is where we go. It's like, what
Yeah,
else
and
was happening when that wire was on the phone?
well, I mean, the word reinvention. Well, how about if we reinvent society? That's where I'd like to put the energy.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
rethink how we have structured this society.
Yes.
Our society is very, I mean, obviously it's very youth centered, but it's also it's capitalistic. It's focused so much on productivity. But how do you define productivity?
Yeah.
We produce all kinds of things at all ages, but if we're expected as older adults to be as productive as middle-aged people in the exact same way, well, that's not going to happen because we change, we grow, we have other things to contribute as we get older.
Yeah.
So we need to, I mean, it's society that really needs the fixing, I think.
I agree. I agree. We need to hold up mirrors and flash it back at them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I agree 100%. And when we start to kind of really put together our earned wisdom and our experiences, the ones that work the way we thought they would and the ones they would didn't, all of them, um, that just really magnifies how we're each unique and special and
Hmm.
um, opens up opportunities for collaborations and ways to do things that never existed before.
Exactly, exactly.
That gets me excited.
Yeah, yeah, and it should. What one of my pet peeves is when people lump people like me together as the elderly. I'm 73, by the way. I
Mhm.
think we should always declare our age, not just admit our age. We should be declaring whatever age we are, we should be proud to be whatever we are. But when people lump me and my peers together as the elderly, as if we're one homogenous blob of a population that all thinks alike and acts alike and has the same goals and everything, that is the most inaccurate thing you could possibly do to us. Because as we grow through life, we all have different kinds of experiences which lead us to make choices, which lead us to other experiences. We are far more different from one another the older we get, and
Yes.
and that's what we need to be cherishing in the older populations. Like, think of all the wisdom, all the knowledge, all the skills that are so varied that could be put to use in our society that isn't being used, that's being
Hmm.
shuttered away. You're not that important anymore. Why aren't you producing, like, why aren't you doing the same things you did when you were 40? It's like, well, I'm not 40 anymore. I can do other things that I couldn't do when I was 40. So being open to those kinds of changes. So
Yeah.
yeah, the elderly is a term I really want to see go away.
Yeah. And, working together with people in other age groups, people that are
Yes.
experiencing, a different time of life. I think it's so important
Yeah.
for us to be connected. Like I have got a 23-year-old son, and I mean, I think I annoy him at times, but I want to be part of,
Hmm.
like, I want to know his friends. I want to know what they're doing. I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know who they're voting for. I want to know all these things.
Right. Exactly. Well, when I talk with younger people, I say, I was once a teenager too,
Mhm.
but I'm not a teenager now. Tell me what it's like to be a teenager now. Tell me what your experience is in your life. Um, so, we need to have that mutual respect of ages, of where they're at, and the richness that they can bring. There are a lot of rich things that young people can contribute, and we need to let them more into society as well. So, yeah.
Well, what I love about them is they won't stand for the things that we stood for when we were their age.
Mm,
They
interesting. Like
just
what? Do
won't.
you have an example?
Um, yeah, like work.
Mm.
Like when I was growing up, I was told you get a job and you stay at that job for 30 years and then you retire and 2 weeks later you'll die. But no matter how bad that job gets, you don't leave because that job has benefits and it's a good job and it's security. And my son's first job, he worked at Home Goods. He was probably, I don't know, 17, 16. And he went in there and he was like, I'm only available on Wednesdays between 4 and 7, and I don't want to do the cash register. I want to work in rugs. And he comes in and tells me this, and I'm like, you're gonna have a job for 10 minutes.
But
And
then
they
again, think about the
they
fact that
loved him.
but the thing about the fact that when we were working, there were pensions. There was such a
Yeah,
thing as a pension
yeah.
and security. These kids don't have that today.
No,
So,
they don't.
but the ironic thing is the things that young people want, older people want too. We all
Yeah.
want flexibility. We all want to be respected in our work. We all want to have opportunities to grow. Um, we all want challenges that we can find interesting and exciting. We want to be paid what we're worth.
Mhm.
I mean, how do old people and young people really differ when it comes to those basic
Because it's not about
needs?
demographics. It's
Right.
about values. It's about values. It's about what
Yes.
we care about.
Yes.
And have you ever heard of David Allison?
No, that name is not familiar to me.
He's Canadian and he has been doing work on values for probably about 10 or 12 years now.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a book called Value Graphics, and he's got a whole system around this. And at this point, he's got millions of data points
Mm-hmm.
pointing towards how people make decisions based on not their age, but
Mm.
their
Interesting.
and it's really fascinating. I think you would love it.
All right.
Um,
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
yeah, but it's what we care about.
Yeah.
And when we care about the same things and connect about that around that, um, the barriers come down.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I think we have to also keep in mind that in our capitalistic society, there are a lot of people making a whole lot of money, keeping us afraid
Yeah.
of getting older, keeping us afraid of other generations and,
Yeah.
in conflict with other generations.
Yes.
They make money off of our fears. Let's
Yeah.
just stop being afraid
Yes.
and let's not give them that kind of reward for that strategy of keeping us versus them. We got to stop with the us versus them in all
Yeah.
kinds of ways. Let's just all be in it together and just improve one another's lives. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, just care about another human being just because they're another human being.
Right. Right. Exactly.
It doesn't need to be anything more than that.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't even want to get started, but um when you boil it down, we're all more alike than we are different.
Yes. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. Yep.
And I think if we all use that as a grounding point, it's going to help in the long run.
Yeah. I agree. Totally.
And everybody is somebody's sister, daughter, mother, cousin, friend. aunt, uncle, brother, whatever. There is human connection,
Hmm.
and um, I, I think there's just been too much effort into breaking those connections for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
Um, and the only thing that I think will fix it is kind of reestablishing them.
Well, I think for me, the silver bullet when it comes to ageism, of getting rid of ageism, is getting the generations to interact as much as possible.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about the fact that children as young as 3 years old can start to absorb ageist messages. That young, think of the fairy tales they race on, the Wicked Witch and the Evil King, and
Hmm.
think of the
Hmm.
ads they see on TV as we're looking at TV. If they happen to
Yeah.
be in the room, they might start to absorb that. They may hear conversations their own parents talk to each other about being afraid of getting old, or they may be talking about their parents. One thing I find, and this really brought it out to me when I was in grad school for gerontology. I was in my 50s, but I was in the class. I was in a minority of among students who were mostly in their late 20s. They were going into grad school in gerontology right out of college. And so I was fascinated by why people that young would be so interested in studying aging. And I would
Mm.
ask them, and without exception, I mean, really without exception, they would say, well, because I have a really good relationship with my grandparent, or this
Mm.
elderly couple next door really helped me, or I had this old professor who I absolutely loved. They had a good relationship with an accurate and positive role model at a young age. That's what's going to solve it for us.
Yes.
Get all the generations together. We've diverged from what humans used to do for millennia. People used to grow up in not only in the same town but in the same hut.
Yeah.
Generations used to live together. Now we're just so separated from one another. People live in different parts of the country. A lot of little kids don't have access to grandparents, or they may not have grandparents who are alive. But even if that's the case, they don't have access to old people in their own neighborhoods even.
That's
So what I
true.
tell a lot of older people is, you want to do some really really important work in the world, volunteer at a school, be a
Hmm.
reading buddy to a kid. Find a way
Yeah.
of being around younger people, because that's what's going to help them have realistic views of what it is to get old, and they may not fear it or make fun of it so much because they don't want to be an old person. That's what's going to really solve it for all of us. And if we don't solve it now, our kids and our grandkids are going to have to solve it. They're going to experience the same thing.
In the town where I live, we have a daycare facility for children and for grandparents.
Cool. Very
And
cool.
they have a farm that they work together. They teach each other things. Like the kids will teach the older people there how to, like, how to play video games, or, like, talk to them about music, or things like that. And then they learn how to play chess, and
Hmm. Hmm.
they have conversations about all different kinds of things. They have it's just a magical place. It's been around there probably for about 25, 30 years.
That's great.
And the stories that come out of it is it's just incredible. Like, kids that went there when they were little go back and volunteer, and if they have to do any kind of charitable thing with, whatever school or religious background or whatever, they go back there, and that's where they're doing it. And
Nice.
um, the food is all, they grow the food, and they bring that
Wow.
to, we have an immigrant support uh, center here as well, and they bring the food there, and it's given to the families. So
Wonderful.
it's just like the whole thing is just really nice that
Hmm.
this still happens.
That's great. That's great. Well, we're going back into what was mostly human history,
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
doing things that used to be done millennia
yeah,
ago.
yeah,
So, which
yeah.
which was a good thing.
So tell me a little bit more about your book.
Well, I guess I can start up by explaining how I got the title. Because people say, well, what does aging sideways mean? And in fact, the first sentence of my book is, this isn't a book about midlife, mid torso weight gain. This isn't what that's about. It's about perception and direction. I got the idea for the book, and I don't know if you can see, but behind me there's the cover of my book. It's
Mhm.
meant to be on a slant. The title's on a slant deliberately. I got the idea from a book written in 1979 by an art teacher named Betty Edwards called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. She would give her art students all kinds of exercises to do, and one exercise she gave them was called upside down drawing. She would give them a photograph of an object, like let's say a chair, and she'd say to them, draw the chair. So they would give it their best shot, and do what they could. Then she would have them turn the photo upside down, and she'd say, now draw what you see. And it put that left hemisphere, the prejudgmental
Mhm.
part of the brain that had all these preconceived notions of chairness, put that sort of to sleep. The right hemisphere took over, and what they saw were just the lines and the spaces between the lines, and they would draw what they saw. The the amazing thing was when they turned those drawings right side up, those drawings were more accurate than the drawings that they made when they were first looking at the chair right side up. So I thought to myself, I think we're seeing aging the exact same way. We've got preconceived notions of what it means to get old, and so we're judging everything with that kind of perception. But what if we kind of just turn our brains to the side a little bit? I mean, not turn them completely upside down, although, a few people could use that, in my opinion. But, turn slightly to the side and say, I don't think that sounds right. That doesn't feel right to me in my experience, and look at aging in quirky but more accurate ways. So
Mhm.
that's what my book is filled with, all these kinds of crazy metaphors and weird ways of looking at people and looking at aging, but that are based on research, based on what we really do know about aging. And I think, and it's gotten, really good reactions from people. Like I say things that people say, gee, I didn't even think of it that way. That's amazing. Yeah, that you're right. This is how aging is, or this is how I've seen old people and how I need to change. So that's why I wrote the book, was to change people's minds, but in an entertaining, surprising, quirky ways.
Mhm. I love that. And that's what captures attention too, because you just turned it upside down.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And then they have to think. They have no
Yeah.
choice but to think.
Yeah.
It's a little pattern interrupt there. That's great. And when did you write it?
It came out last year, last September, 2024. So it's about a little over a year old now.
That's great.
But it's not when I shouldn't say I wrote the book last year. That book is a compendium of 10 years of blogging on
Of course
aging
it is.
issues, plus other articles that I've written, and new material that I created for the book.
Yeah,
But it really is a compendium of my work for a long time.
all the good books are. That write a book in a weekend thing is not.
I'd like to learn that technique. I can't imagine how I'd do it, but you know.
Um, so what do you want people to know? Like if there was one thing that you can impart on the entire world,
Okay,
what would it
let's say
be?
it in one sentence. Aging is not a disease. It does not include, it's not a disease that's solely of deterioration and decline. Period. End of story. It's not a disease. It's natural. We're supposed to do it. And it isn't all deterioration and decline. We actually get more skills, certain skills that we couldn't possibly get when we were younger. So it's a ongoing process of gain, loss, and gain. That's what we need to see aging is. It's not just a downhill, constant downhill trip. We climb and we climb and we climb. We keep climbing.
Yeah.
And I say that here's an example of my quirky way of looking at aging. You know the phrase over the hill, which is a phrase that
Mhm.
drives me nuts. Nobody's ever over the hill. What we are at any age is we're at the top of a particular hill, and when we
Mhm.
get to the top of that hill, we see other hills in the distance that were there that we didn't even know were there before we climbed the hill. We were at the bottom. We couldn't see it from the bottom of the hill. So we climb a hill, we see other challenges, we get to that, we conquer that, then we see other challenges. So life is a continual process of climbing and changing. So when people say old people don't like to change, we're changing all the time. We've got
All the
decades
time.
of change, and the two biggest changes we endure is some parts of our body are challenging, and then we start to lose people our age. We
Mhm.
lose our spouses, we lose our friends. Those are huge changes for us, and that's why I say it's really great to make friends with people of different ages, because then you constantly have a well of relationships from which to draw.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You won't be the last one standing.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so, from all of the learning and conversations and connections, what blew your mind?
What blew my mind? Uh, I think what blew my mind was the fact that we have so much. We have the tools we need in order to change, and we're not changing.
Mm,
You know, we're not as far down the road of evolution in terms of understanding aging as we should be. What's keeping us? And I think we've really got to be working much harder. It gets more and more important for us to understand aging sooner because the world is getting older. So what blows my mind is, why don't we know this by now? We should all know this by now, and we
yeah.
don't. So, but there are fortunately many people like me who are out there doing our thing, trying to get this message out there.
It's true. I had no idea until I started this little thing 2.5 years ago. I'm new into this world, and it is, every day I'm introduced to another beautiful person that's doing something meaningful and real and changing lives, and it's just such a gift.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's. I have some great colleagues that really are doing some phenomenal work, and I'm encouraged by that. So we're gonna lick this thing. It's gonna take a while, but we're on our way. At least the word ageism, people know what ageism is now. They didn't hear that word for until maybe several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. Now it's in the media. You get all these stories all the time, and yet you get constant examples of ageism in the media. You
Often in
know,
the same article.
yeah, often in this right. Yes, or the headlines.
Yeah, the
Part
headlines, clickbait.
right. Part of my my journalistic background is I also worked in newspapers as a copy editor, and copy editors are the ones who write the headlines. If you see a headline in a story that calls a woman a granny,
Yeah.
but A, she's not a grandma, or B, she is a grandma, but it has nothing to do with the story, that's the kind of stuff we need to call out. It's like, why are you calling this person a grandma, a granny? It's demeaning, it's irrelevant.
And
Uh,
why should being a grandma be something negative? I mean,
right,
that's
exactly. It's so, I mean, if you're lucky, you might want to aspire to be a grandparent someday. So why should that be the case? But it's that kind of, us versus them. Let's make fun
yeah.
of the old people because I'm not there yet, or I'm so afraid of being one of them that humor is used
Ding,
as a
ding, ding.
tool for distancing. I mean, I don't know how many people listen to late night talk show hosts, but their monologues, their comedy monologues are full of ageist references. And I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I have written to these people to say stop with the ageist jokes, because while we might think they're harmless and funny, first of all, we would be outraged if they were telling racist jokes or sexist jokes or homophobic jokes, but somehow ageist jokes are okay. Well, they're equally harmful because a lot of older people then, when we apply for jobs, the boss who's hiring us, may subscribe to what the late night talk show host is saying. Ha ha! Isn't that funny about old people? Or the ageist birthday cards you see in a store. Somebody who might have some influence over your life might be picking out a card to send to a friend. That kind of stuff can be harmful. It can spread. It spreads into the workplace. It spreads into healthcare. There's all kinds of discrimination against older people all over the place. You name me a facet of life, and I could tell you how ageism can impact that. So we just need to get rid of it. And
What do you see being like the next breakthroughs that happen in this area?
the next breakthroughs that happen, actually, I mean, again, I think the breakthroughs are there's a really powerful movement now to have more intergenerational activity,
Mm,
and I think that's where the breakthroughs are. I mean, you look at the even protests in the streets now. You look around, and people of all ages are together.
yeah,
Um, so I think that's where the breakthroughs are for me. Anyway, that's where I'm
yeah.
I'm concentrating my efforts to encourage people.
We
But
we had the No Kings protest in my town.
mm-hmm,
Um, Usually it's just a handful of people there,
mm-hmm,
and we had 1,800 people in
mm,
my little
mm,
town, and a lot of them were young families. They came with their kids, their dogs, their parents,
mm-hmm,
you know,
mm-hmm,
several generations together, and
mm-hmm.
it was really so good to be part of that. So good to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, I've read some things where people are surprised that there are so many old people at these protests. Well, when you think about it, old person like me, I'm a baby boomer. Well, I was protesting when I was in my 30s, 20s and 30s.
Mhm.
The Vietnam War, the women's movement, the civil rights movement. So we're old hands at this.
Yeah.
We've been there, done that, and we're
Yep.
doing it again. So that should be encouraging to people that you don't outgrow your values.
Mhm.
If you have the kinds of values that endure, you don't you don't abandon those values. So you find ways of continuing to act on them. And that should set a good example for young people too. Like, hey, yeah, when I get to be that age, I can still have a voice, or I should still demand to have a voice. Those are the kind of learning experiences that I think that's where the breakthrough is for me, is young people and old people really getting to know each other better, getting back to, like I said, what we used to do for millennia, is that old and young people were in close proximity to each other, so they knew what each other was about.
Yeah, yeah, and they got to see the future.
Yeah, yeah. And who wants to see a future that's nothing but dread and disease and failure and or isolation or marginalization or infantilization? Who wants a future like that? Nobody does.
No,
So
no, no, not at all. Well, I cannot believe we went 30 minutes already. I love to end these conversations with a wisdom bomb. Do you have anything small and actionable that somebody could take into their day-to-day life and make a difference?
do you called it a wisdom bomb? I love that. um, well, I would say, and I write about this in my book, the power of one. We may all think that we are not powerful. I'm only an individual. How can I change the world? You start with your immediate community. If somebody says an ageist joke in your presence, you can be kind about it, you can be humorous about it, but call attention to it and say, you know, this really isn't accurate about old people, or this really can hurt an old person. So you start with your immediate group, but then again, like we were talking about, if you see a headline or some ad on TV that makes fun of old people, write about it, voice it, write to the source of that. So if it's an ad on TV, find out the company that the product that's being advertised and say, this is not right, don't do this. So we all have the power of one. And that would be, you have more power than you know. And
Yeah.
enough powers of one make a power of a group. And wasn't it Margaret Mead who said, never think that any group of individuals, small group of individuals can make a difference. It's the only thing that ever did or ever does.
Hmm.
I'm paraphrasing very
Yeah.
poorly,
Yeah.
but there is the power of one. That's what I would leave people with. That's my wisdom bomb. I'm going to use that
That's
phrase. I'm
a
going to steal
great,
that from you.
you steal it. Use the hashtag, get in the conversation. Um,
Thank
that's
you.
great. That's great. And that's actionable. I like
Mm.
actionable. And thank you. Thank you for coming here and dropping your wisdom bombs.
Thank you so much, Donna. It was a pleasure.
Um, Everybody connect with Jeanette. I will leave links to her book and her website in the comments. And if you have any questions while you're listening to the recording, if you have questions, comments, ideas, tag us, and we will keep this conversation going because it's an important one. So thank you very much. Have a great Wednesday, and we'll be back next Wednesday with more.